Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Rick Chapo with DMCAAgentService.com. So today we have a humdinger of a DMCA case. YouTube has sued a gentleman named Chris Brady over alleged bogus DMCA takedowns and an alleged DMCA extortion scheme. Yes, all those magic words. This case is just absolutely fascinating. So all of this is based on a complaint that YouTube has filed in civil court against Mr. Brady. The information is all from that complaint. We haven't heard from Mr. Brady yet. So always keep that in mind. You know, if you think of an argument and only one side has made the argument, well, you have to let the other side make the argument because they may well have some good points. But here's what we know from the YouTube complaint so far. It is alleged that Mr. Brady was contacting some prominent influencers on YouTube and demanding that they pay him money or he would file DMCA takedown notices against their accounts. Now, this is important, of course, because of the way the DMCA works. If an account receives a certain number of complaints within a certain period of time, successful complaints within a certain period of time, then the platform has to cancel that account. And so in the case of YouTube, the threat here, of course, is that the account would get a certain number of complaints and YouTube would shut it down. And then for prominent people on YouTube, well, that's how they make a living. You know, they make a living through their accounts. And if it's shut down, well, you know, then obviously that has some rather severe ramifications. So essentially an extortion plot. Again, this is what YouTube is alleging. So let's just actually read some elements of the YouTube complaint because they are fascinating. Let's see. Defendant Christopher L. Brady has repeatedly attempted to harass and extort money from YouTube content creators through bogus allegations of copyright infringement. This lawsuit seeks to hold him accountable for his misconduct and for the damage he has caused to YouTube. Defendant Brady targeted the YouTube accounts of Kenzo and Obi Raids, among others, in an extortion scheme. In January 2019, defendant Brady, using several false identities, sent YouTube multiple notices of alleged copyright infringement pursuant to the DMCA, claiming that 2 videos uploaded by Kenzo and 2 videos uploaded by Obi Raids supposedly infringed copyrights that he owned. Defendant Brady notices of alleged infringement included the various representations required under the DMCA. Blah, 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 blah. And he certified under penalty of perjury, I am authorized to act on behalf of the owner of an exclusive right that is allegedly infringed. Brady even included links to other copies of the videos in question as quote-unquote proof that he, rather than Kenzo and Obi Raids, had created them. Defendant Brady's notices of alleged infringement were fraudulent. The video posted by Kenzo and Obi Raids that Brady identifies as notices did not infringe on any copyright supposedly owned by Brady. Brady knew that at the time he sent the notices. Brady also knew that he did not hold the copyright to the videos he identified as his own in the notices. His certifications under penalty of perjury in the notices were knowingly false. Defendant Brady sent the notices of alleged infringement for the improper purpose of inducing YouTube to remove the identified videos and assess unwarranted copyright strikes in the Kenzo and Obi Raids accounts. Boom. So that's pretty clear. Now, how does this work under the actual DMCA? So the section of the DMCA that we're focusing on when we're talking about online infringement is section 512. And it has a subsection F, which deals with bogus DMCA takedowns. Now, Congress didn't title it bogus DMCA takedowns because they don't really use the word bogus, but you get the idea. So I've actually recreated the code here on the right side of the screen. And it says, as you can read there, any person who knowingly materially misrepresents under this section, 1, that material or activity is infringing, which is basically what's going on here. Or that the material or activity was removed or disabled by mistake or misidentification, shall be liable for any damages, including costs and attorney's fees incurred by the alleged infringer, by any copyright owner or copyright owner's authorized licensee, or by a service provider. Blah, 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 blah. So in this case, YouTube is a service provider, and they're the ones bringing the lawsuit. Now, there are a couple things about this that we need to focus on. Let's go back to the first line. Any person who knowingly materially misrepresents. Okay, well, knowingly materially misrepresents has been interpreted by the courts to be a subjective standard, not an objective standard. What does that mean? It means that we don't ask the jury or the judge to consider what a reasonable person in that situation, in the situation Mr. Brady was in, would do. Instead, we look to see if for evidence indicating that Mr. Brady knowingly took these steps, that it wasn't a situation where he just made a mistake or didn't understand how the DMCA works or something of that sort. And as you can imagine, in most of these cases, the defendant gets up there and says just that. I apologize. I didn't understand how the DMCA worked. I made the wrong kind of claim. Mea culpa. It's my fault. I'm sorry. And as long as they say that, well, it's difficult to recover under 512F because it doesn't show a knowing material misrepresenting. Instead, it shows a negligent one. So that doesn't meet the standard necessary. Now, in this case, I think Mr. Brady's going to have some problems if these allegations are true, because in contacting the influencers to allegedly extort them, well, there should be a record of, I don't know, emails or instant messages or something of that sort. You can be pretty sure the influencers probably made copies. And so once that's there, it's going to be difficult for any kind of claim of mistake. I mean, how do you mistakenly extort somebody? That doesn't really fly. Now, we also have to look at the other side of this, which is if we look farther down in the language, it says that the individual shall be liable for any damages, including costs and attorney's fees incurred. So what are the damages here? What damages has YouTube experienced because of this alleged act by Mr. Brady? And it's difficult to see any, really. However, the damages can include costs and attorney's fees. So I imagine YouTube's attorneys are working diligently on this case and incurring significant hours of attorney's fees. But nonetheless, you're looking at a situation here where you can see the problems of 512F. You have to get over that knowingly subjective standard, and then you have to actually prove damages. Now, if let's say the infringer's accounts had been canceled because of these allegedly false takedown notices, well, then those infringers would have serious damages. They would have lost their livelihood, and in that situation, you could see a lawsuit, involving quite a bit of money. But it doesn't appear that was necessarily the case. So, just to be clear, YouTube actually reversed all the claims against the infringer or the influencers and took, the strikes away and everything else. So the influencers are fine. However, this case gets more interesting for two reasons. The first one is DMCA extortion. So this is an extortion scheme that's being alleged. Extortion is a criminal act. And I'm not aware of the police getting involved at this point, but you could imagine at some point they may. And if they do, extortion carries criminal penalties. And so you get a reservation in the Gray Motel for a number of years if you are found guilty of extortion. It is a serious crime, and also there are some financial penalties associated with it. Now, what's even more interesting is an allegation in the YouTube YouTube complaint that well, I'm just going to read it. It's very interesting. So, and this is from the YouTube complaint. A review of defendant Brady's and I'm just going to call them an influencer's Twitter accounts from this time period suggests that they were engaged in some sort of online dispute, and it appears that Brady sent the notices of alleged infringement for the improper purpose of inducing the influencer to submit a counter notification, thereby exposing his home address. So if you receive a DMCA complaint against you, you have to file you can do nothing, or you can file a counter notification. If you file a counter notification, you have to include certain specific information in there. Things like you submit to the jurisdiction of the federal courts, and then your contact information, your name, your home address. And that has some privacy ramifications, as we can see right here. So moving forward with the complaint, influencer submitted a counter notification on July 4th, 2019. On July 10th, he announced via Twitter that he had been the victim of a swatting scheme that day. Swatting is the act of making a bogus call to emergency services in an attempt to bring about a dispatch of a large number of armed police officers to a particular address. Swatting is a very serious situation. As we saw, I believe it was about a year ago, there was somebody who swatted another home somewhere. They swatted somebody else, and the ramifications of that were the police showed up, and somebody in the house was shot and killed. And it was all based on this fake claim, this fake call into the police. And the individual who made that call, who thought he was, being very clever, he's now doing 20 years in jail because he's a moron. And he deserves every bit of it. So swatting carries criminal ramifications as well. Now, not 20 years. That individual received 20 years because of the actual death that occurred as part of the swatting action. In this case, obviously, there was no death, thank God. But still, an individual can look at criminal time, and they can look at paying significant fines. There are all kinds of different ramifications of that. So, again, I have to emphasize, Mr. Brady has his day in court. He's innocent until proven guilty. So let's see how he responds to all this, or more importantly, his attorney. But nonetheless, it is a fascinating case. So it's, YouTube versus Chris Brady, I believe is the title. Actually, let me even just look it up so I can tell you. So you'll know. So it is YouTube LLC versus Christopher L. Brady. It's case number 19-353, filed in the United States District of Nebraska. And it is a very interesting and fascinating case. And so you're probably going to do a Google alert on this one because it's going to be wild to watch this one play out. But anyways, I've often been asked, are there any ramifications for filing bogus DMCA takedowns? And the answer has always been yes, but they're very hard. It's a very hard claim to pursue. But in this case, if the allegations are correct, I believe then YouTube may well be able to make a successful 512F claim. Now, again, it's if these allegations are correct. Allegations are easy to make. Evidence, a whole nother matter. So let's see what evidence comes out in the case and see how it plays out. But definitely, this is one you want to keep an eye on. So anyways, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a good one.